Welcome, councillors. Good evening and welcome to Latrobe City Council's monthly council meeting. Now, this is a bit different to normal because this is being recorded and put up on the live stream afterwards. Due to a few technical difficulties, we could not live stream directly. Okay, tonight's meeting is being held virtually, and I'm pleased to welcome my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Darren Howe, Councillor Dan Clancy, Councillor Melissa Ferguson, Councillor Dale Harriman, Councillor Bradley Law, Councillor Tracy Lunn, Councillor Graham Middlemiss, and Councillor Kelly O'Callaghan via audio link. Now, as part of the governance rules, we have to ensure that everybody can see and hear us, and so I'll go around the room. Councillor Howe, can you see and hear?
I can see all the councillors and hear all the councillors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lund, can you see and hear?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can hear and see everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Law, can you see and hear, please?
Sorry, I better unmute first. Yeah, everything is fine in the sense.
No worries, thank you. Councillor Clancy, can you see and hear, please?
Yes, got everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor O'Callaghan, can you see and hear?
I can see and hear everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, can you see or hear?
Yeah, I can see all and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Middlemiss, can you see and hear?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
No worries. Councillor Harriman, can you see and hear?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. And I also acknowledge our CEO, Mr. Stephen Piacenti. Right, we move into our opening prayer and recognition of the traditional land holders. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting here today on the traditional land of the Barakalong people of the Gunai Kurnai clan, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Now, conditions of entry. Bit of housekeeping. Our council meetings are governed by a set of rules, which includes provisions relating to respectful and courteous behaviour. Please note that no portion of this meeting may be recorded or broadcast without the permission of council or the chair, and this permission may be revoked. For members of the community participating in the meeting via the audio visual link tonight, well, maybe not because it's being recorded. That's not pertinent because there's no one there. Okay, now there's no apologies for absence because we're all here. Now, do I have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor O'Callaghan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a material interest in item 9.1, which is 2021-11 sanitary bins in council toilets. And I have disclosed this to the CEO prior to the meeting. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other councillor who has a conflict of interest, please? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is the adoption of minutes. Do I have a mover for the adoption of minutes? Councillor Middlemiss, you're moving. Councillor Lund, are you seconding? Yep. Okay, do I have any opposition? No. Anybody wish to speak? No. Okay, I declare it carried unanimously. Now, acknowledgements. Now, as councillors know, and the public may or may not know, we can raise any formal acknowledgement that we wish to do. It can be a congratulations or condolences. And tonight, given that we are in the middle of the Olympics, I'd like to acknowledge many of our community that are actually competing in the Olympics, the normal Olympics and the Paralympics following. So that's Jenna O'Hay, who is basketball, dual Olympian and the Opals captain. Aoife Coughlin, judo, and her brother, I think, went to the last Olympics prior to this. Tegan Micah, who was from the Micah family, originally from Erica. Now, we're not sure about hockey, so if we have got that wrong, I apologise profusely. Then we have 3 who are actually going to the Paralympics, and that's Emily Beecroft with swimming, Ruby Storm for swimming, and Stuart Tripp for cycling. So, you know, it takes a hell of a lot to get to any competition, let alone the Olympics. And so we wish them the very, very best, and we're right there behind them, supporting them. Thank you, and good luck. Now, I also note that Councillor O'Callaghan wanted to do an acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and go Team Aussies. I would like to acknowledge firstly the departing CEO of Latrobe Regional Hospital, Peter Craighead, who has been a long-term CEO not only at LRH but a number of Gippsland hospitals, who retired just last week. Many people will know Peter in terms of his work not only here at LRH but at Sale and also out at Yarram. He's done a broad range of work across the health sector and has a long-standing career, is a nurse by trade and CEO for a long time following that, and he will be retiring, or he has retired, and we thank him for his contribution. And also wanting to acknowledge Angela Scully. Many of the families in the local area will know Ange. She was the nurse unit manager on Thompson, the maternity unit, has been a midwife for 44 years and has delivered many babies in our local community. And Angela has also retired at the end of last week. And we thank her for all of her service and wish her well as she heads off into her retirement as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you. Any other councillors have any acknowledgements that they wish to put forward? No. Okay, thank you. Now, the next item is public participation. Now, to do that, you have to put a request in by noon on the day of the council meeting. There have been no questions placed, so we will go to the next item. Now, they're a bit slow on the screen. There's no items held over, but there has been a change of the order of business. Now, bear with us because we're learning on this one. Now, so I'm advising the meeting that as per the governance rules, I've consented to a change to the order of business. And as such, a motion will be put to close the meeting to consider confidential item 19.1, which is the former Moe Library and Service Centre. Now, do I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Harriman. Right. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Ferguson. Do I have any opposition, please? No. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? Oh, okay. No opposition, no speakers. I'll declare the motion carried unanimously. So now what happens is live stream, or the recording is ceased at the moment to hear this, and then we will come back into which is what we just spoke about. So that would be, oh God,
Yep, the meeting's being recorded again, Madam Mayor.
yes, it is. Thank you.
Mayor, yep.
Yep. I'm
Okay.
missing actually a sheet, but anyway. Yes, sorry, Councillor Harriman.
Happy to move the motion, Madam Mayor.
Right. No, sorry, I'm missing a sheet that I have to scribe with, so I'm just writing this down. Open and part 2. And for those who are watching this, what's happened is we had to deal with an item that was in the closed section and whether it could come out. It's been voted on. Now we're coming out, and this is the motion before us now. Now I have a mover of Councillor Harriman. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ferguson. Do I have any opposition, please? No. Do I have anybody? Oh,
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I just noticed Councillor Law has just been re-edited. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. I've just had to swap from me Microsoft over to my iPad because I just kept on getting the low signal and kept on freezing. So I'm trying on my iPad now.
okay. Sorry. Did you miss any of that?
Yeah, I didn't vote at all. So I dropped out when the vote
We
was
haven't
in,
got
but-
to the vote.
Well, in that case, I haven't missed too much then.
No worries. Councillor Harriman moved, Councillor Ferguson second, and I asked for opposition and I haven't received any unless you wanted to be opposition. So then I'm asking Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really glad we've been able to get this out and open. I thank my other councillors for it. A lot has happened over the last couple of months in relation to the former service centre and former library at Moe. Obviously, it's been reported on newspapers and through social media that one of the tenants in guest was asked to leave. This is just to advise the community that we are currently negotiating with an interested party for the lease of the former Moe site, library site. What we want to do is then work with those community groups, and there were a large number, and a large number were very upset, obviously, that we're happy to work with them to look at using the former site at 44 Albert Street in Moe and keeping that as a community hub, and working with those groups to make sure that they're not left feeling, well, that they've got some clarity moving forward on that they can stay there if they need to, which I think most have indicated they would like to. It just gives clarity to those groups. It stops a lot of rumours that council is actually throwing everybody out of the centre. We're not. And even though the original resolution of council wasn't followed, this gives us an opportunity to help those community groups settle, and council to actually work positively with those community groups. And in the event that the lease at the former library in Kirk Street does not proceed, that the expressions of interest detailed in point 4 be extended to the users of the ones we're talking to about the service centre. They can actually look at the library, hopefully for the benefit of Moe. The site is used at the old library site. We're also looking at forming a working group. We consider this to be of major importance to the council. Therefore, we're putting our CEO, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and one other councillor to work with those interested community groups regarding the use of the former Moe Service Centre site, so that we're actually putting a high level of importance on it. We understand the importance it had to the community. We understand that we've caused a lot of grief with what's happened, and we want to work and try and rectify that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak?
I don't think there was much left unsaid there. That's fine. All good.
No worries. Do I have a councillor wish to speak for the motion? No. Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? No. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Howe and myself. Sorry, I shouldn't be pointing. I'm going around the screen. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we will go to item 9.1, which is a notice of motion. Councillor O'Callaghan. Oh, yes.
Do I need to be evaporated or am I going to get moved to another room?
Sorry. Steve will, Mr. Piacenti will, he's done.
Yes, put you in the waiting room.
Yes, you're in the waiting room.
Sorry, Callaghan.
Not
Thank
that
you so
you-
much.
Oh, there you go. All right. Councillor Callaghan's in the waiting room with a conflict of interest. Okay, this motion is about council receiving a report at an upcoming council meeting presenting background information and options, including budget implications, to provide sanitary bins in all toilets managed by council. The provision of it's been a very long day, as you would all appreciate, will provide dignity and privacy among those suffering from incontinence issues, which does affect people all ages. Do I have, Councillor Ferguson, are you moving this motion?
Yes, please.
Right. Do I have a seconder for this motion, please? Anyone? Oh, Councillor Harriman? Right. Do I have any opposition? No. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. I think it's a pretty self-explanatory motion, really. And I think that's why, it won't be met with much opposition. We just need dignity for all. And I think if it's something that we can factor in to be a little bit more considerate of others and to sort of set an example for all facilities across Gippsland, and I think it'll naturally happen as people move forward in time anyhow. So why not be the first to try that? And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
I think it's just a necessary service, Madam Mayor. It's something that we need to provide for our older members of our community, or actually all across the board with our community. This is a problem that affects all ages and all people. And I think, as Councillor Ferguson said, it's a matter of dignity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Do I have a councillor wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Clancy.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is good, and thanks very much, Councillor Ferguson, for putting this forward. This does receive a report to council. Really, we probably want to look at how many sites we're talking about, what facilities we're talking about, what service centres, what public toilets we have. To actually have an audit on how many facilities we have and what the requirement is, and whether it's every stall and every convenience, or whether it's just made available at every location. It's really important that we come back to work out what sort of rollout that would be, and what the budget's implications would be, because I think as Councillor Harriman and Councillor Ferguson have spoken about, it's very important to maintain dignity within our community. But we also have to work out, if it came back at we had 10,000 sites across our municipality, is it within our realm to be able to do that on our current operating budget, or do we need to look at state and federal funding for these sort of things? So to call a report back to look at this, we all recognise that this is something that's really, really important, but we do need to make sure that we all have the data to be able to make these decisions if we are going to roll these sanitary bins all the way through the municipality. So it's a great start, and I look forward to seeing the information as it comes back. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I apologise for looking away and things. My husband's come home and let the dog up. So sorry, she's just gone. Okay, do I have another councillor wish to speak? Nope. Okay, do you wish to close, councillor Ferguson?
Yes, please. I think that is important, what Councillor Clancy said as well, because there's obviously a lot of expression from clubs such as the Moe Soccer Club have been asking for some time for that. That's just a local example. And, you know, when it comes to stating, you know, that's council managed, well, sometimes we put these things in the hands of those that are leasing or using. And I think it's important to realise that if they're underutilised, if they're facilities that are rather underutilised, or they're ones that are heavily utilised, but perhaps the clubs don't have a lot of money, if that funding can be directed to their clubs to enable this sort of dignity, then I think that would be good also. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, we've had speakers, so I'll put the motion to the vote, please. Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Lund, Councillor Howe, and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Mr. Piacenti, can you let Councillor O'Callaghan back in, please? There she is.
Yes.
Nearly.
You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Can you release me, please, Mr. Piacenti? Co-host has asked me to start my video. Thank you, Mr. Piacenti. There we go.
There you go. No worries. All right. Next item is another notice of motion, 9.2, and this is about the South Ward Community Disaster Recovery Committee. Now, we're being asked to endorse the current committee as the new Community Disaster Recovery Committee, with updated terms of reference to be developed in consultation with the committee to develop or support recovery activities following any emergency or disaster in South Ward, and endorse the South Ward councillor as our council's rep. No worries. Councillor Ferguson, are you moving this, please? Okay, do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Harriman, do I have any opposition, please? Councillor Clancy, okay. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Okay, I rise to move this motion, but before I do, I will have a number of questions, Madam Mayor, to ask directly related to this motion that I've already asked, and I've received either answers that, in my opinion, are a bit wishy-washy or haven't assisted me all that way. So I just wanted to put that forward. Yeah.
So, all right. So you're clarifying, you're asking questions on clarification with information you received. Is that what you're doing?
Right. Yes, questions that I've already put forward and that I would like to put forward again, because the answers weren't as clear or as clarified as I'd like.
Okay.
Around. Yeah. So to start with, I believe that there was money given to council somewhere between $70,000 to $90,000 almost 2 years ago. And I believe that was for bushfire relief in my ward to be used by the Community Recovery Committee in the South Ward. I've asked in writing how much of that has been expended, where the money actually is, and who is currently in control of the money. The committee, or the Community Recovery Committee, debated around these issues in my ward and has no idea and has never agreed to any expenditure of this money. So I ask the question right now, how much of that money has been expended? Where is the money actually is? Who's currently in control of that money? And if the money is expended, why, what on, and why the Community Recovery Committee's approval, or at least opinion, has not been sought?
Okay, fair enough.
Yep. I've got...
Oh, sorry. All right. So can we deal with one question at a time?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Piacenti, do you have the answers of if the money's been spent, if it hasn't been spent, where it is, and why the committee haven't been informed or been part of that consideration? Do you know the answers to those questions, please?
Some of the question I might need to take on notice, but in terms of what I've looked at in relation to this matter, so there was a grant provided through council to council by, it wasn't Emergency Management Victoria back then, it was another agency, and so it was pre-Emergency Management Victoria, and that funding effectively came to council as Councillor Ferguson indicated, as part of the bushfire recovery process. So there was two components to that. One was an element related to staffing, so a staff member who was appointed to undertake work, and then there was another element related to recovery activities. So typically recovery activities go to things like providing support for mental health activities in terms of barbecues and meetings and so on. So I understand that there was, as part of that grant proposal, there was detail provided as to proposed as to what that money might be spent on, and then obviously the establishment of a community recovery committee, in my view, they play a role in terms of helping council to finalise that detail as to where typically that money would be spent. And so I'm not across the full detail of all the meetings that were undertaken. There was some information provided to council about this, not just recently in terms of council, also in terms of a response to a pathway. There's a series of meetings and so on that have been held with that group, and they would have been looking at, or would have thought, the work to say where that money would be spent. So there is still money outstanding from that particular grant, and there was actually an extension to that grant that was provided by the government due to the pandemic primarily, and actually, whereas ourselves and Cardinia were beneficiaries of that money, that funding, and so that grant was extended until I think middle of next year from memory, to allow for the balance of that funding to be expended. And so I might not have captured all of Councillor Ferguson's questions there, so I wasn't taking notes. Sorry, when you asked those.
That's okay. If I could, Madam Mayor, if I could just list my other points and questions, or the questions really, before we go into debate. And thank you to the CEO also. But if I could continue, is that okay, Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the Community Recovery Committee, the current one, the chair, Annette Depler, had an online conference with the Emergency Management Commissioner, Andrew Crisp, online. And I would like to ask these questions on behalf of the current chair and deputy chair who put these questions forward to the commissioner. So basically the questions were, this is how they were left in the dark. Basically, how was the amount determined, by how, state, local or federal government or other streams of funding? Where is the money? Does it go to local government? Is it specified how it should be spent? For example, X amount for mental health, wellbeing, dollars in community events, dollars for practical community requested projects. Who is responsible for the role, responsibility and the rights and the priorities for spending the money? The chair further told Commissioner Crisp at this time, so far, the Community Recovery Committee has been unable to access any of the money for practical projects, which he couldn't fathom or understand himself, the Commissioner. Why were the CRC Committee unable to access the money they had gained? They had to go and gain external funding for a 90,000 litre water tank in Jumbuck. Funding at that time still being sought for the erection of a fence around it, and pipe fittings. Yet they'd been told by the current GM at the time that the money could not be used on capital works. We're talking about 2 years here since the fires, and that money has not flowed out to the community. I've got serious questions around this. The committee advised me that some of the ideas from council officers that were put forward were a website for tourism in Yannar. Yet my understanding around this particular grant is it's not about economic stimulus, it's about direct assistance and services to the ground for bushfire victims. And they were proposed to make a website, and one of the quotes was in excess of $25,000 for a website. Now, I'm sorry, I ask everybody, and the questions I have is, how does that help people on the ground that have just experienced bushfire? And if it's about tourism, that's economic stimulation, not direct recovery relief. There was also a guest speaker at the time organised at a cost, which the cost was never disclosed, a motivational speaker, which was poorly attended, and an officer or whoever was working at the time actually made community go and get people to attend this speaking, and it was an absolute failure. And they weren't even given.
Can you hang on just a sec, please,
Yeah.
Councillor Ferguson? Because for this meeting to go ahead, we have to have all councillors, we have to be able to see and hear them. Councillor O'Callaghan, can you see us? Because we need to be able to see you.
And here, Mayor,
Yep, but we need to be able to see you. Councillor O'Callaghan, we need to be able to see you, please. Okay. Can I ask our governance team, what do we do with Councillor O'Callaghan, because we cannot see her and we have to be able to see her? Sorry. Oh, there you go.
we're back.
You're back. No worries. Okay. Sorry, I had to pause it. We have to be able to see and hear, as you know.
I think like Councillor Law, I was there showing low connection. Can you still see me now though?
I
I
can.
can see you. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Mr.
We lost
Pearce,
Councillor Harriman.
Just about to say,
cool.
Madam Mayor, I think I did get a message from Councillor Harriman. He said he's lost all his visual and his screen's gone blank. So
Okay, can we
pause there for a minute and I'll see if I can get
we'll have a
Councillor
pause?
back on the call.
All right, can you see if you can get him in? That would be great.
I'll just give him a call, Madam Mayor.
Okay, that would be good.
No need to call him. He just sent me a text. He's restarting his computer.
Oh, that could take
Yeah.
a while if it's like mine.
Just need to hold a minute, Madam Mayor, and see if he can rejoin us.
Is he coming in?
That's a yes, Madam Mayor. He's just joined right now. Just readmitting him.
No worries. Oh, there he is. Okay. Can you see and hear us, Councillor Harriman?
Yep, sorry about that, Madam Mayor. The computer decided to do a restart all on its own. So I do apologise.
Don't you just love computers? No worries. Okay, Councillor Ferguson, now you were going through some information about a conversation with the Commissioner and there was discrepancies there. Had you finished that? And
No, I did have a little bit more to go on that.
and then I'll ask what all right, I gather this is the background of your question.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the question is, where
I asked Madam Mayor, why this money after almost 2 years and more than since the fires happened was not used to provide direct services to the affected residents in my ward. And I'd question how a very expensive website or a motivational guest speaker is going to help these people. So I'll wait for the debate for the rest. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Piacenti, can you answer why the delay in actual notification or correspondence back to the deputy chair, I think it was, and where the actual money is and why the if I get it right, why officers have put forward a website and a guest speaker is to utilise that money. Is that the question, Councillor Ferguson? Have I got it right? Yep. Mr. Piacenti, have you got any answers why this money hasn't flowed out for on the ground practical use for bushfire victims? Do you have an answer for that, please?
I suppose in general terms, there was a briefing paper that recently that was provided to councillors with, which had some questions I think were raised at the time about the process of establishment of community recovery committees and what expenditure had occurred. What I would suggest, Madam Mayor, is I'm happy to take those questions on notice and bring back further information to council in relation to those, rather than trying to respond to them now, just in terms of being able to give you the right answers in terms of what's occurred. So I think if council would give me that grace to come back to you with a further briefing paper in relation to that matter.
Okay. Are you happy with that, Councillor Ferguson? Because
I'd just like to the debate when we can, and yes, I'm happy with that, because obviously I want the CEO to hear a lot of this as well. And you know, he needs.
We can't debate now.
And
I'm just asking if you're happy for that. Now, because questions that are asked are answered, and that's put in the minutes.
Yep, that's fine.
No worries. Okay, right. All right, Councillor Ferguson, you're moving this motion. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, please.
Right.
Okay, now that I've cleared or tried to clear matters and long overdue questions that I've held, I'd like to start debating this motion. I would like this committee not being hamstrung or interfered with. The remainder of this money can be used by the continuing Community Recovery Committee to actually help people. So, Madam Mayor.
Hang on, I've got a hand up. Councillor Middlemis.
I'd just like to raise a point of order.
Yep.
Everything that Councillor Ferguson is raising is a legitimate concern by the ward councillor, but these issues are starting to move away from the matter we have before us. Obviously, Councillor Ferguson is fully entitled to a full report.
You've got to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'll go back to square one. My apologies, folks.
We heard up to report.
Okay, basically I was saying that everything Councillor Ferguson is raising must be investigated and reported on by council officers. I have no doubt about that. So just the point I'm raising is we are straying from the matter before us, and I want this in no way to be construed that the matters Councillor Ferguson is raising, I totally support. Raising issues like this where there is community concern and council must respond. But I think in this case, we've moved away from a proposal to endorse the Community Recovery Committee. We've suddenly got two issues here, both of them which must be addressed. But I think in this case, we're looking at this, the motion.
Fair comment.
And look, I don't want to take the sting out of what Councillor Ferguson's saying. She is entitled to an answer, but I don't think this is the time she gets an answer on those questions.
No worries. Fair comment, because Councillor Ferguson, and I note you have got very serious concerns and questions that needs to be answered, but we have to address the motion that's before us. So and you'd run out of time anyway,
right?
So I know what Councillor Middlemiss is saying. So can you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, thank you both for your experience, and I acknowledge that.
No worries. Councillor Harriman, you seconded.
I was just going to see if Councillor Ferguson had much more to go on the actual motion, Madam Mayor, that she.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Move an extension.
You need an extension of time, is what he's saying.
If I could have one, I'd be grateful. Yes.
All right.
to move. Madam
Councillor
Chair.
Harriman moving, Councillor Middlemiss is seconding. Do I have any opposition to that? No. Okay, you've got a further 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I ask now what action is being taken to rectify the situation, as there's 4 sub-issues now to be taken into consideration. 1, the money. 2, the as yet not seen briefing report, as was committed to. We needed to see that via. And 3, the letter addressed to the Mayor and councillors needs to be addressed to all. And my now take.
That's fair, and all those questions have been noted and they will be answered, and they'll be answered in the minutes. But you've got to speak to the motion.
Yeah.
So if you're speaking to the motion, that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so Madam Mayor, I move this motion in the hope that it clarifies and solves the issues raised to me by this committee. And their strong desire, given their ongoing experience in emergency disaster relief in the area, to continue to serve the recent floods and storms that devastated significant parts of my ward. I don't need to go into it all. We all know what happened. You know, and I know that the locals and what the committee actually want. Now, the other thing is here, which we need to address, is I have right here the terms of reference, for example, and on here, let me read this if I may, Madam Mayor. This says the Municipal Recovery Manager or representative, and this is who the membership is, up to 2 ward councillors. Membership of the committee will include the following, not must, not should, not could, will. Yet I was never informed about this committee whatsoever, never told about any meetings or included on this committee at any time since I was voted in. And I'm not sure prior to that what happened since its formation. But that's definitely right here. Anyone can see it. It's in the terms of reference. Sorry, it just upsets me. The CEO is correct. Definitely there was a letter here that did extend it due to COVID. It wasn't a request in any other way. It was an automatic extension to next year. If that hadn't have happened, acquittals would have been due in June and no money would have been spent. What happens when you wind something up with money with it? It goes, or it gets appointed by the terms of reference to another incorporated association or another body. So what was the intent? Sorry, so that is why I'm speaking to this motion. I believe that my constituents who are affected by bushfire have been dudded, and I would like to see more about this and see where this money went, where it is, what's happening with it, and just get the communication around the table. If you have community members, don't shut them out and keep them blind to it.
Okay, I have to wind you up because you've had an extension and your time's up.
Okay,
Sorry.
very much. Okay, thanks
sorry.
for that. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
That's okay. The only problem is the clock's over there and I didn't see.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
So it's over there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
I might reserve and just take in some of what Councillor Ferguson has said, Madam Mayor, if that's all right.
Yes, that's understandable. Councillor Clancy, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks very much to Councillor Ferguson who's put this. When I put my hand up for opposition, I'm not opposed to the intent of this at all. But noting that there was a report requested and that was coming back to us. And the other thing, I think the only reason why I put my hand up for opposition was that because this deals with the South Ward, we have community recovery committees in a couple of the other wards as well. And I thought this actually might be a wider municipal option for all of us. And that's why I first put my hand up. But as I've listened to the questions that Councillor Ferguson has put up, I do note that I think that there's much more that we need to know. Obviously, I didn't know the background to any of this because it's a notice of motion that's presented to council without a report. Councillor Ferguson's living this and has asked those questions and feels as if there's more information there that's required. Without those questions being answered and the CEO's taken a few on notice, Councillor Ferguson herself had a few questions there as well. I don't know if I can support this notice of motion because there's so much more information that we need. And even though the intent's there, and I note also that around the endorse Councillor Melissa Ferguson as the council representative, I would have thought the terms of reference actually said that already. So whether we need a notice of motion to actually appoint the councillor that is already appointed to that position, I'm not sure about it. So I think that if this is lost, Councillor Ferguson will still be able to be appointed to the CRC. So there won't be much loss there. But I think the questions that have been raised seem to have more precedent than the actual appointing the terms of reference, because it's a little bit operational for me. But I think that there has been some really serious questions raised tonight, and without the answers to those, I don't feel as if I'd be able to support this notice of motion. That's not the reason why I've originally put my hand up, but now that there's been some developments through questions to the CEO and without answers provided, I won't be able to. That's not to say that the intent of this and the work that you need to do with your community isn't really, really important. And I would say to the people who are out in the South Ward that this is really important and that those questions should come back. But the CRC will continue, and I believe if the terms and references are already written that a councillor must be available, then Councillor Ferguson's probably right to go. So certainly the point 2, which is endorse the council representative onto the new committee, it sounds like that's already done, and we can probably start to move forward. So not opposition in intent, but opposition against this notice of motion. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a slightly contrary opinion on this matter because I believe the intent of the motion is quite clear. Councillor Ferguson has raised a great number of concerns around the situation in her ward, but this is very clear. It is a proposal as to how the CRC should be constructed, and I intend to speak because I have a fair bit of experience with CRCs. I intend to speak for a fair bit, so feel free to cut me off when my time's up. First of all, we've heard an extension. Yeah, so the community recovery committees are meant to get representatives from all over the community together, to drag them together and to get their views on what is the best outcome from the particular disaster that has occurred. The CRC is a sounding board for the community as to what's required. Typically, the funding flows to some organisation to do this, and usually it's council. And so that the council officers typically do the work on the ground that what the CRC has requested. And, if you're looking back, we've got a very proud history in this area. If you think back of council officers like Steve Tong, Heather Farley, Stu Simmy, over the last 10 years or so, the major bushfires 10 years ago, the enormous amount of work those 3 officers and their assistants did over the years. We have quite a proud record on that, and I'm very disappointed that we're not still in that field. But CRCs are formed after a typical disaster. They used to be formed by the CFA. The CFA would invite all organisations to send representatives along to a meeting, and they would form the CRC. A few years ago, I think about 4 years ago, Emergency Management Victoria took over that role and they formed the CRCs. Now, I wasn't aware of this, and I suspect most of the councillors aren't, that in January last year, an organisation called Bushfire Recovery Victoria was formed by the government, and the CRCs now sit with them. Now, CRC, it's a bushfire recovery organisation, but in June this year, just a couple of weeks ago, the responsibility for the storm event and flooding events in Gippsland was handed to Bushfire Recovery Victoria. So the CRC and control of the CRC, or the formation of the CRC, sits with Bushfire Recovery Victoria. Now, Bushfire Recovery Victoria have issued a booklet called Community Recovery Toolkit, which is how to go about forming a CRC. Now, having read it, I think you'll find it was probably the original CFA book.
Can I just, Councillor Harriman, are you moving an extension of time?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lund. Okay, any opposition? No. Keep on going, please, Graham.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sure this community recovery toolkit was written by the CFA, updated by EMV, and now being updated by Bushfire Recovery Victoria, BRV. On page 12, and I'm talking directly to point 1 here, on page 12 of the community recovery toolkit, BRV makes it very clear that an existing community group can take over as the CRC. So in other words, what Councillor Ferguson is suggesting, that the still unfinished work around the bushfire there 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, the CRC around the bushfire, which is exactly the same community, can actually, if that's the view of the community, can actually take over as the CRC and continue their work around the floods and the storm. And on page 18 of this document, it says how to activate an existing group. In other words, how to do the transition from the existing CRC to take over this stuff. So everything that Councillor Ferguson is suggesting here is possible. There's another section in the book that says that a purpose-built CRC can be built, and that role is around council. But I would suggest here that everything is being suggested is sound, is legal, can be done. So that's what the proposal here is. So moving on from that, Councillor Ferguson has suggested that this committee, if it was formed or formed up again, could take over any emergency disaster, including the recent one. Unfortunately, the CRCs are built around a particular disaster, so that couldn't occur. But everything that's proposed there is correct. So I see no problem. In fact, I can't think of anything more stupid to have in our community a bushfire recovery CRC and a flood recovery CRC, because almost guarantee you that it'll be the same people.
Same people.
Wearing different hats at different times. So this is a very good proposal. If I can move on to endorses Councillor Ferguson, I'm still on the Mine Fire Recovery Committee because the state government made it very clear to council, you will have a ward councillor on the CRC. And it's very clear, we've mucked up. We've mucked up. We haven't appointed Councillor Ferguson to this committee, and we can fix that tomorrow. In fact, I don't even think it requires a motion of council, simply because there is only one ward councillor. So what I'm saying, in essence, the proposal is sound. We should use the Bushfire Committee for this flood and storm recovery, meld them together. It can be done. It's very clear it can be done under the BRV guidelines. So if we take all the passion out of the argument, I'm in favour of this proposal. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, Councillor Middlemiss. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Councillor Lund.
Hello?
Yep.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yeah, this is bounced all over the place, hasn't it? So, yeah, so I had made some notes. I think these committees, community recovery committees, they're not operational committees and they're not council committees. I don't believe we need to endorse a community recovery committee. I don't think that's our role. And we haven't done that in the past. And I think that, you know, the CRCs have been developed in other local government areas without being endorsed. They're community-led and not local government directed. And I have concerns that if we start endorsing these communities as that then become local government directed, and then they will not be responsive and agile to our community in response to emergencies and recovering from those. They are supported by council officers and other service providers, but they have limited functional lifespans, and council has no more influence than any other attendee. I take Graham's point that, you know, the current committee could morph into a flood response committee, but I'd be deeply concerned that we wouldn't be giving the opportunity for other community members who might be affected to also contribute and be on those committees. So I'd want to ensure that it was open and an open and transparent process. that allowed other community members to identify if they would like to be part of that group. I think there's operational risks with the proposed move that need to be considered. Is this setting up a precedence for all future recovery CRC committees that they need to be council endorsed and operational in this way? I've got concerns around that. And I guess if I look at some of the best practice models and that have been put forward and used in previous, responding to previous events, I guess I'd like more information that this really is the pathway forward. And in terms of point 2, I would just like to note that as the ward councillor, that Councillor Ferguson would be the representative on those committees, and I'm not sure that it actually needs endorsing through this process either. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Lund. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Do I have a speaker against the motion? Do I have any other council wish to speak? No. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. There's a lot come up around this outside of the motion. That it's obviously there's major concerns with the community in the area. I look at the notice of motion and I take on board what Graham has said, and I know Graham's got a lot of knowledge and guidance. I don't see anything wrong with this motion. I think endorsing the councillor, we quite often do it with a number of other committees where we actually endorse the councillors to go on board. With a number of the facilities we've recently built, we've endorsed councillors to go on it. With a number of community or user groups that we're part of, we endorse councillors to go on them. I just think it puts those representatives in the area that have obviously called for Councillor Ferguson to be their representative. It's giving clarity to the community, and it's also acknowledging that we listen to the community. And I think that's really important. This group's done a lot. Obviously, there's concerns out there that hopefully the CEO will be able to allay and come back with some answers. But I think if we've got a community group, a community recovery committee that's wanting to serve the community, that wants a councillor on board endorsed by council, they've asked for a particular councillor, let's support that the whole way through. And as I think as Councillor Middlemiss has said, it fits in exactly with the current process. So I'm going to be voting in support of it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. A question, please. Now, the correspondence that we all received from the committee, is this actually what this is actually what they were asking for, is it?
Correct.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to close?
Yes, please. Okay, so in summing up, let's face it, terms of reference state that a councillor should have been on there all along. Not sure about the points relating to not endorsing on council that's in the terms of reference, end of story. Thank you for all the other points that have brought up in support for this. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. It's on 2 occasions now, Councillor Ferguson has indicated that either councillors or officers are interfering in a process without identifying anything, without identifying anyone. And my concern about this, I'm trying to listen to the things Councillor Ferguson's raising, and I'm getting caught up on the other matters that are being raised. It's the first time I've heard some of these. So there's a lot of stuff happening. My question is, I want to hear Councillor Ferguson in the pure sense of the intent of the motion, but there's been a lot of things stated in this that are making it difficult. And I'm just, yeah.
So
For the conduct of the meeting, Madam Mayor, I don't know how we can leave that unclear.
So what are you actually asking, please?
Well, I think it's for clarification. I think they're fairly significant accusations to make in a council meeting.
There's no accusation.
And I haven't seen any other
One at a
conversations.
time, please. Keep on going.
Sorry, the question was in relation to interference by councillors and officers. And it's been stated in the public meeting.
Yep. Now, I'll let you speak in a minute. I think, and I'll ask for Councillor Ferguson to clarify. I think what she was saying is that different.
I think we've lost Councillor Ferguson, Madam Mayor.
Hang on, it flicked off. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
I'll be back in a second. I'm coming back in.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
She was talking about processes that had happened with officers. So I think that was all documented. So do you wish to, can you answer that the question from Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, because this isn't about politics. It's about a terms of reference stating that I should have been on this committee all along, and I wasn't. I wasn't even aware of it, never informed of meetings. That is the issue at hand here.
So if I get it right, you're not accusing anyone. You're saying it could, it may, or should.
I'm looking for clarification, and with this motion, who hasn't got questions around this now? Now that everybody has the same information I do, I'm pretty sure everybody would have questions.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Middlemiss. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's best that I have a break. I don't want to be a killjoy around this discussion, but we have a fairly simple proposal before us. The other matters, as I said, need to be investigated by the officers, and I'm sure they will now. But Madam Mayor, can I draw your attention back to the motion?
Yes.
The motion is structural around committee formation, and needs to be considered outside of the issues and heat that is around this issue. It's a fairly straightforward issue.
No worries. Yes, you're right. Okay, we've had speakers, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, hang on. Sorry. Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman. Have I missed anyone? No. And myself. Opposition. Councillor Lund, Councillor Howe, and Councillor Clancy. I declare the motion carried. Right. Okay. Councillor O'Callaghan.
Madam Mayor, can I beg your indulgence? Could we adjourn for 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Well, how about we adjourn, because I'm upstairs. How about we adjourn for 5 minutes, please? We'll come back at 7:40. Thank you. Hang on, Graham. Is it being recorded now? I don't see that. Okay, sorry. All right, Graham, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question in relation to item 9.3 through you, Madam Mayor, to the CEO. Is the CEO of the view that the item previously passed would, shall we say, complete everything that is suggested in this motion. In other words, is this motion superfluous because the previous motion would effectively carry out everything that's in it?
Mr. CEO?
I thought there was a slight difference when I did read them previously. I'll just go back to the previous version, which is the previous notice of motion, sorry. Which the first point of the previous motion did talk about, an updated terms of reference to be developed in consultation with the committee. And so that process is yet to be undertaken. So I suppose that part of that motion could be done without a report coming back to council. So that could just happen. What this motion is asking for is for that to be formalised at a future council meeting through a report. It's the way I read this motion being different to the last one. So I suppose it didn't necessarily need a further report to come back to council, in that the new terms of reference would be updated as part of the previous motion. And it would have just operated, but this motion calls for the report to come back to council for endorsement.
Does that answer your question, Graham?
Yes, thank you for that. I have a slightly different opinion, but I suppose I have to wait for the debate to make that point. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, and if I get it right, and if I get what Dan was saying is right, that's what you're after anyway, Dan, a report coming back. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do I have, Melissa, are you moving your motion?
Yes, please.
Right. Okay. Do I have a seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Harriman. Do I have any opposition, please? No. Okay. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor.
Okay, clock's ticking.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. Now that my previous motion has been passed and the true information has been made clear, I hope this motion will just let the Community Recovery Committee in the South Ward go ahead and do their job. Hence, they will need new guidance via new terms of reference, and will enable them to access the majority of what's left of the 90,000 that's been in surplus sitting there, as we've now established the acquittal is not until the end of June 2022 now. And basically, yeah, I've been feeling pretty strained and physically sick over what's happened. I smell a rat, should be investigated by IBAC, and I might just report this for investigation in the morning with all the documents I have as well. Thank you, Madam.
Oh, well, that was a quick one. Okay, Councillor Harriman.
I think it's fairly straightforward, Madam Mayor. The motion says we're calling on a report back to council. Yeah, just a little bit lost with everything that's come up tonight, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have a councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Middlemiss.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My question indicated I might have some opposition to it. Perhaps I'm just a stickler for governance issues around this, because I think everything that's asked for here is covered in the previous motion. What we've got to remember is, while we can talk about terms of reference, ultimately the CRC has to sign off on it. So it is not our final say around this. I think everything's covered in the previous motion. I just thought this one was superfluous, but I wouldn't vote against it just on my views. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Clancy.
Question, Madam Mayor, not in opposition nor in favour at the moment. Just a question, and around capacity more than anything. It's requests for the next council meeting. I just wondered whether the CEO might be able to indicate whether, can we make that in 4 weeks, or is it the first available? Is it I'd hate to, you know, put the organisation in a spot where they had to bring a report back in the next 4 weeks. That might not be possible. So just a question to the CEO.
Madam Mayor, sorry. It's Councillor Clancy. It will depend on, I suppose, the work and the consultation with the committee. So if it's fairly straightforward, we do have 5 Mondays in this month, so with 1 extra week. There may be the possibility that it can come back to the next meeting if that consultation can happen in a short time frame. However, if it was not to occur in that time frame, we'd put a report up indicating to council when it would be coming forward if it didn't make the next meeting.
No worries. Councillor O'Callaghan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think probably further to what Councillor Middlemiss has raised, and I'm not sure if this is a question for Councillor Ferguson or whether it doesn't matter substantially in regard to this, or maybe the CEO. My understanding is that the BRV rep is now a co-chair of these committees, which may adjust the intent. So it's just more about, will that be, like, that's a new thing, but I think that's a new mechanism since the handover to BRV. So is there an additional element, like, is there a consultation process is probably the question with the CRC, like, is this going to become a notice that can be endorsed, or are we now bound by something else because of this BRV change? Because we haven't had to deal with that before in relation to these.
Wouldn't that actually be covered by the terms of reference?
Yeah, I guess that's my question.
Yeah,
Madam, are we beholden in some way to BRV now? Has that changed the?
But I think that would be covered in the work being done in the report detailing the terms of reference. So I would think it would be covered in that. Sorry. Is that enough, or did you want to ask?
Oh no, it was just a question in relation, if that's not someone we've had in the mix before in relation to the way these groups work. So just further to Gray's point, but I don't understand how those relationships work on those committees yet. But someone may be more, the CEO might be more across that than I am. It was just a question because we've got another player in the mix. Whether it's a bit of who owns the, like, the committee owns the terms of reference, and now there's this other entity. Does that need to form part of this language? I don't know. That was the question, Madam.
So, okay, Ms. CEO, would that all, the questions that Councillor O'Callaghan is raising, would that be covered in that motion?
I think, Madam Mayor, through any future report coming back, and even to myself in terms of the role that BRV will play as part of the recovery committees, I'm not exactly certain. It's new to us in terms of having them. I think as Councillor Middlemiss touched on earlier, it's part of our recovery processes. And so the initial conversations that I've had indicate that they probably won't play a major role other than supporting the group and providing funding. They might participate as one of the group that forms part of the committee, but not necessarily leading it, was my understanding. But I'm happy to take that question on notice and bring that back if this motion were to pass, either as part of a future report or just take the question on notice if this motion doesn't pass, to provide you with further information around that.
Does that answer your question, Councillor O'Callaghan?
I think it does. Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just trying to pull up an item for reference to provide some context to that, but I don't have it in front of me, or there was a document that somehow referenced it, but that's fine. Happy to proceed.
No worries. Thank you. Okay, do I have a speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Harriman, have you haven't spoken?
Yeah, I think I did briefly,
Oh,
Madam Mayor.
sorry. It's
I
been
think
a long day.
Long day.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to close?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think in final summing up here, We have the letter, which was presented to I also forwarded to the CEO and was written to all councillors and the mayor. And that is the request of our residents. It is a community recovery committee, and we must adhere to the wishes of those. And if you go onto the Bushfire Recovery Victoria, most of the terminology around this is community-led. So let's acknowledge that in the terminology and respect the fact that they've already got a chair, that these other people will probably be part of that. The Bushfire Recovery would be a member on that committee, I believe, and other stakeholders that are put upon that. But at the end of the day, the generic terms of reference need to be looked at, and I need to be obviously put onto that committee. And we've now approved the new council committee, so let's give them guidance, including the money and their long time request, and good clear terms of reference, which includes usage of the 90,000, and let them have some practical aid on the ground that's been delayed for far too long, because that is what this is about in the end, the residents, not the politics, not anything else, not people changing chairs or different committees being formed. It's about the people. And I think we need to sit back and think, okay, it's 2 years since the fires, but these people have been traumatised. So allow the community committee to aid them in the way that is appropriate. And please, I just hope to see that this functions better and that the practical aid reaches the ground and that there's no politics or no games played in anything, and it just goes ahead the way the community wish it to. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. We've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay. Next item is 10.1, which is the governance rules and local law number 1. Now, that went out for public consultation and we have had no response back to say that we have it wrong. So it's moving to adopt the what was published. Do I have a mover for this motion, please? No one? Oh, Councillor Howe, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor O'Callaghan. Any opposition? Nope. Okay. Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, ever so briefly. We adopted the new governance rules and local law number 1 last September as part of the transition to the new Local Government Act. Officers have now been able to undertake a more thorough review of the content of the rules and the local laws than was feasible in the limited time frame of the transition. This review sought to capture potential amendments that would facilitate the orderly, consistent and transparent conduct of council meetings and involve comprehensive benchmarking against both the model rules and the governor's rules of other Victorian councils. The councillors have provided their input. We've also had a 4-week community engagement process which yielded no submissions. The council group were happy when they endorsed the proposal of the amendments at our June council meeting. So I'm happy to move this motion this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor O'Callaghan, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in support of Councillor Howe and his concise overview in relation to that. The changes that were made were not that significant, but they were to ensure that we were consistent with the requirements of the Act. We did have the opportunity for community to provide us with feedback, but there was nothing that anyone wanted to explore with us, which is a good indication. I wanted to thank our governance team and Kendria for her guidance Kendria Pope for her guidance in relation to this work. It's highly specialised in terms of what needs to be brought together, and it then needs to be clear and concise from a practical and applied functional perspective. We do rely on this in terms of guiding our meetings and practice, and it also provides us with some consistency, not only for our councils, but for some of the other work that we undertake as well. So it is important that we have this in place, that we're clear in what our expectations are, but also how we adhere to the requirements, not only of the Act, but also that the standards that we set. Councillors did have a level of input to this to ensure that there was clarity of functionality and also the opportunity to consider, I know Councillor Middlemiss would often refer to this, but custom and practice of the council and what would normally be in place in terms of the way conduct of meetings and those governance processes are undertaken. I think that's pretty much it from me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a councillor wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Howe, do you wish to close?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. The Councillor O'Callaghan and Howe combination has covered it all off, I think.
No worries. All right, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour. Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay. Item 10.2, acknowledging naming of council reserves. Now, this is, this actually was my notice of motion, and it's, this is about, we have signs naming reserves after people and no one has a clue who it's about. So that's, we're looking at actually ensuring that happens. Councillor Middlemiss, are you moving?
To save you the trouble of moving from the chair, I'm quite happy to move.
Thank you. Do I have a Councillor Howe? Are you seconding?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Do I have any opposition? Nope. Okay. Councillor Middlemiss, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think we need to provide more information, more recognition around our history. And it was brought home to me only a couple of weeks ago. I was at a function representing council, and a lady from Trogan came up to me and said, my father was mayor back in the mid-70s and a small reserve was named after him, but they've taken the sign away. Does that mean it's no longer named after him? And I thought, gee, we ignore our history at our own peril. And I think the more information we've got, and once this report comes back, I, for one, will be seriously considering that we put the names back up on reserves. It doesn't seem right to me that our predecessors 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago would name something and then we just rip the name tag down because it was extra maintenance. So I'm quite happy to support this as a first step along the way to getting some of our history recognised. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak?
Just very briefly, Councillor Middlemiss covered most of it off. There were three options in this motion. The one that they've recommended seems to be the simplest and most cost-effective, to make it part of the public open space strategy review, which was due to be carried out later this financial year anyway. So all for it. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have a council wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lunn. Got to unmute yourself.
My apologies, Madam Mayor. It's not coming up with the mute button for me for some reason. So
Okay.
someone magically puts it on the screen. I just want to say that I am in support of the motion, but it's really good to see that we're really looking at our history and actually unearthing that a little bit more so that we can share that with our community and really celebrate we've got some magnificent, wonderful things that have happened to get us where we are and some extraordinary people that have got us there. So I'm really excited about this one. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Do I have a speaker for the motion? Councillor Harriman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to point out point 2 of this motion, if I could, that it's the intent of council to engage our local historical societies to undertake historical research on named council reserves and just point out again what a great asset our historical societies are and how much council appreciates the work they do for us. I know they're probably going to thoroughly enjoy doing this, and I know they've done some basic research for us on a number of other issues, but they've also done a lot of stuff in depth for council, and I think it's just great to acknowledge what a great asset our historical societies are, not only to council, but to the community, Madam Mayor, and thank them for all they do for us. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do I have another councillor wish to speak? No. Councillor Middlemiss, do you wish to close?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's all been said.
Thank you. Okay, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Law, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Howe, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor O'Callaghan and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay. Item 10.3, which is MAV Work Care Self-Insurance Scheme. Now, Councillor Middlemiss, you're moving the motion
I am.
and you'll explain what it's about.
I will.
You good lad. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Harriman. Do I have any opposition? No. Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This, I suppose we need to go on record. This is just a little bit of history. The Municipal Association of Victoria set up effectively a workers' compensation scheme whereby the collective power of the councils, we were able to get the insurance cheaper. In other words, it was a money-saving effort on behalf of all the councils of Victoria. It does appear that the scheme has come unstuck. The responsible government department didn't like the administrative arrangements around the scheme and has suggested that MAV leave the field in this area. So really what it's doing is just explaining what's happened around that, the history, why the self-insurance scheme, MAV self-insurance scheme has closed. And it is worth noting that with excellent advice of our officers, we didn't join the scheme first. We said we would wait a year or so to see how it went, and it didn't. And so there was no inconvenience to us at all. So merely a stating of history, no inconvenience to us. I'd almost like to say move on, but I won't.
You already did. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Middlemiss has said it all. I think what he's not saying though is I think council made a very good decision on the night.
Yeah, they did. No worries. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? No, I've put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Howe, is your hand up? Councillor Howe and myself, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, 13.1, authorisation of council officers under the Planning and Environment Act. We have to delegate them to be able to do that. Councillor Middlemiss, are you moving this motion?
I am, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ferguson. Do I have any opposition? Sorry, she just beat you, Councillor Howe. Do I have any opposition? No. Okay. Councillor Middlemiss, do you wish to speak?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's that close to procedural that doesn't matter.
True. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak?
Ditto. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Any councillor wish to speak to the motion? For or against? Nope. Okay. You don't wish to close, Councillor Middlemiss? Nope. Okay. No speakers, no opposition. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay. 13.2, presentation of the Audit and Risk Committee minutes. And we're noting those reports. Councillor Middlemiss, are you moving this motion? Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ferguson, considering you're both on the committee, I would think you would. Do I have any opposition? No. Okay. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Middlemiss.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Again, I'd almost say this was straightforward, but this is a very serious matter. This is our Audit and Risk Committee. You'll see from the summary, if you don't want to read all the minutes, and it's a very big read, have a look at the summary at the front, and you'll see the range of subjects that have been covered by the Audit and Risk Committee. It's fair to say that the work done in this meeting was fairly straightforward. There were no major issues raised. If you speed read the summary at the front, you'll see the word fraud appear 2 or 3 times, but that's just the title of the committee and what they're working on. There is nothing as a committee member, and I'm sure Councillor Ferguson will endorse this, that needs to be brought to the attention of councillors as a matter of concern. It's just a record here, so our ratepayers, our citizens and councillors can see the enormous amount of work that this committee does on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minimis. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Correct. Yes, please, Madam Mayor. It's just phenomenal the amount of work that the Audit and Risk Committee do. It's been an interesting experience being part of this committee and what I'm observing, and it's just so critical, you know, that we get these things right and that we have options to pull things into audit that don't look correct or don't line up. And when I see the amount of work they put into all these reports, I'm just astounded. They do a lot of sort of work that a lot of people couldn't handle. So I'd just like to say, you know, they've done a great job.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Against motion? Anybody else wish to speak? No. Do you wish to close, Councillor Middlemiss?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
No, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Howe, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Law. Councillor Lund, is your hand up? Yep, thank you. Okay, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, 13.3, which is the updated risk management policy. We have to update our policies as a matter of procedure. Do I have a move for this motion, please? Anyone? Councillor Harriman, thank you. Okay, do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ferguson, thank you. Do I have any opposition? No. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
No, I think it's all there, Madam Mayor. It's a policy we have to update.
Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak?
No, that's fine, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Okay. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? No. No speakers, no opposition. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Now we're moving. 13.4, Council Policy Review, the electronic surveillance policy, and that has been updated a little. Do I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Howe, and are you seconding Councillor Harriman? No worries. Okay. Councillor, is there any opposition? Nope. Okay. Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Council, we use the electronic surveillance as CCTV, body-worn cameras and vehicle tracking for public safety purposes and for the protection of council staff and council assets. Surveillance systems have been in public places, can impact on the privacy of individuals, so it is important that council has robust practices in place for the management of its CCTV surveillance. This replaces a policy that was endorsed in 2019 and was due to be revised in 2023. But this has been a very dynamic space due to the increase in affordability of the CCTV systems. We have had a large number of our sporting, social and community groups requesting to be allowed to install CCTV systems in their premises or in our council premises. The updated policy addresses a number of opportunities identified to further improve the management of our CCTV systems to ensure compliance with legislative requirements and our policy and to achieve better practice. We have included recommendations of the HLB Man Judd's 2020 audit, as well as the Vargo report, also benchmarking from other councils and the internal consultation with our Audit and Risk Committee. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up, I think Councillor Howe's hit everything on the head. What we're doing here is responding to, again, community, particularly clubs who were having issues with vandalism and had asked council to put up temporary cameras. We've been doing that, but obviously a lot of them were getting ongoing problems. This will allow those clubs and user groups and community groups to put in their own system. What it will also do is it puts in more detail included in operational policy around our temporary systems. There's obviously been a number of issues, and I think people are well aware of the issue out at the Sandbank reserves and hooning around out at tyres and other issues that have arisen out at the sandbanks. And this will allow council to take a more proactive approach in it and basically get a faster, quicker, safer response and a more streamlined response to getting those areas looked at with temporary cameras. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do I have another councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Howe hit it on the head when he said it's a dynamic situation. The availability of digital surveillance equipment at very cheap prices now means that this kind of equipment is being run out right across our community. Lots of houses I've noticed have got this equipment on them. Our sporting clubs, as Councillor Harriman says, is an anti-vandalism measure, increasingly adopting this kind of equipment. And we need to be on top of the changes that are occurring. And so what I'm really signalling is I wouldn't be surprised that within 2 years this policy is back for a further review. This is becoming the norm. I remember when I started as a councillor, we were all agog. We were going to buy a camera which we could hide in the bush reserves and find vandalism. Now I can walk into any number of shops and, for $50 buy a full set of equipment. So, all I'm signalling is we need to be on top of this. We need to stay on top of it because we must balance people's privacy against the prevention of crime. So I'm suggesting this is dynamic, it's now, and it may change fairly rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a councillor wish to speak against the motion, for the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Howe, do you wish to close?
Oh, just wondered, was it a black and white camera, Council Middlemiss?
It was.
Okay. Are you insinuating he's a bit older?
Too much respect, Madam Mayor, to insinuate that.
No worries. All right.
I've developed a thick skin, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, it does that to you, doesn't it? Okay, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lund, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay, 14.1. Options for the parking. Councillor Howe, I note you.
I haven't heard it, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'll just say what it is first.
Yep.
Options for the parking overlay, cash in lieu contributions for the Traralgon CBD commencing, oh yeah, on page 150. Now, you're moving a deferral, are you?
There's an alternate motion which they're putting up now, Madam Mayor.
Yes, a deferral. Okay, so the alt and it is a deferral. Okay, to come back to the next council meeting, do I have a seconder for this alternate motion? Sorry, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy beat you to it. Okay, you're seconding this motion, are you, Councillor Clancy? Yep. Okay, do I have any opposition? Nope. Okay, Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak to this motion?
I better, Madam Mayor, thanks. Just as a brief explanation, in April 2016, the parking overlay was introduced to the Latrobe City Planning Scheme. What this meant was if a new business starts or an existing business moves premises, the business may be required to provide extra car parks. It's determined by the size of the premise and the type of the business that was getting started or being moved. If the extra car parks can't be provided, a financial contribution must be made. Currently Traralgon is the only town that's involved in this scheme. Latrobe City Council received a letter from the Traralgon Chamber of Commerce requesting a suspension of the cash in lieu contribution in Traralgon, such as it is in the other towns, for a period of time to encourage new businesses to the town still being impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The letter also highlighted an example of an Asian small goods store that was hoping to open in Traralgon, only to be deterred by the $56,000 upfront contribution that was required. This was more than the first 12 months rent they were going to pay in the premises. This report offers 3 recommendations. However, I feel we need to look at other options, and I propose deferring this decision until the next council meeting. I hope to find a solution that encourages small business startups and expansions while applying the user pay principle that are currently in place for the larger businesses. The extra 500 car parks that were being built thanks to the generosity of the state government also needs to be considered. I've spoken to the president of the Traralgon Chamber of Commerce, and he agrees that an extra month is worthwhile in getting the right outcome. So I hope my fellow councillors understand my reasons and support this deferral.
No. Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Clancy, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Howe's spoken to the report that's been published, and community members may have had an opportunity to have a read of that. The decision around ensuring that we have enough car spaces and enough car spaces funded, but also the idea of having economic growth within the CBD as well needs to be, it's a balance, and that's what that report has done. But this motion that's been put up, this alternate motion, is asking for a deferral of 1 month. Councillor Howe has spoken to that. Much more detail is required, and we need the data, and we need to go out and find out a little bit more about waiving the financial contribution required, so we don't set a precedent for year on and year on and year on. So I think, as Councillor Howe has said, having another month, there's no harm in doing that. Having more data, people love that. You know, we've got to have the information to be able to make a decision. And that's what this deferral is asking for. So if people have read this and they have interest in this, please give us another month to go and get some extra data, to come back with a further report to be able to consider this in the September meeting of council. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Howe, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've said it all. Thank you.
Okay, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Howe, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Law, Puppy Dog Lund. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 14.2, policy position on social and affordable housing. Councillor Harriman.
Moving an alternate, Madam Mayor.
You're moving an alt?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and you will actually speak to what this is all about. Councillor Howe, were you seconding that?
Yep, I was seconding the alt, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any opposition? No. Okay. Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This policy is really important to council, and I think every councillor has had input into this and has come up with some really good ideas on it, and it's something we need to have a really strong background for. I've asked for a deferral on this just to get some technicalities right and some further analysis of options being investigated. We have had a number of situations where we've had social housing being put in the wrong area, having gone to VCAT and lost. What we're trying to do here is make sure that when social housing comes up and when council looks at its own process of social housing, we have the right areas nominated, that we're not having activity centres referred to when it's just a fish and chip shop, and avoiding issues like that, which cause not only angst to the community, but also angst to those that are affected and are looking for social housing that meets their needs, that fits their requirements, and helps them in their journey. So I ask councillors to support this and to let the community know that we just think there's some more work we need to do on it to get it right. It'll come back to the 6th of September meeting, and we'll discuss it again there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do I have a speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Middlemiss.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The aims of this report, what council's agreed to generally as our policy around social and affordable housing, are excellent. We have agreed to invest our support very strongly around the government's program, but to quote Councillor Clancy, much more information is required. And this motion just sets out to do that. Get some more detail. As Councillor Harriman says, we don't want to repeat the VCAT problem of a couple of years ago, where a fish and chip shop that opened about 5 o'clock at night and closed at about 7 was classified as a neighbourhood activity centre. So, yeah, I think we're on the right track. We just require, as I quoted Councillor Clancy, much more information. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. No worries. Do I have any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Howe.
At the seconder, I thought I might make a few words. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I am. Oops.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oops. Sorry about that.
No worries. The paper presented tonight at 14.1 doesn't give the full detail of how the social and affordable housing policy will work alongside the housing strategy developed under Live Work Latrobe. A deferral will allow officers to come back with more information about the density and the location to better inform the social and affordable housing policy. Locations identified in this draft as defined by walkable distance to services and public transport may be suitable and consistent with statewide strategies and policies in this space. However, Latrobe's housing strategy will help inform the density of housing through the application of the different areas, such as the substantial change areas and the incremental change areas that help set maximum densities of dwellings on the lot in Live Work Latrobe. And not only do we want to look at the densities on the lot, we want to look on densities on the block and densities in the area of what we're developing. So if this analysis will come back to council at a future council meeting, it will help inform us on these issues. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And I do sincerely apologise to you. Oops. Okay. All right. Now, do I have any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to close?
I think it's all been said, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A bit late, some of it, but anyway, you get that. Okay, we've had speakers to the motion. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lund, Councillor Orr, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman and Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay, 14.3, our submission, oh yes, for the state electoral boundary review. Do I have a mover for this motion, please? Anybody? Anybody wish to move this motion? Councillor Law, you're moving?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Howe, are you seconding?
Very happy to second. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any opposition? No? Okay, Councillor Law, do you wish to speak to the motion, please?
Just quickly, I think the 5,000 odd people in Maui would love to move into the more electric, but at this point in time, it's not possible without us cutting off one other arm or leg of Latrobe City. So at this point in time, I think we'll have to wait for nature to take its course and Narrabeen to grow naturally a bit more, where then we may be able to transfer at a later date. That'll be it. We're stuck.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak?
That was pretty much it in a nutshell. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have another councillor wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate some of the points that Councillor Law made, really, that it is important that we don't cut off our other areas that it would be proposed to be South Ward. So I'd just like to say I definitely think that it all needs to be included. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have another councillor wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? No. Councillor Law, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you. I've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Howe, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Law, Councillor Lund? Yep, got it. Thank you. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay, 14.4. Oh, nearly there. Our submission on the, I note you, Councillor Harriman. I take it you're moving this? Yes, all right. Okay, our submission on the proposed variation of the Code of Practice for Timber Production. Councillor Harriman is moving. Do I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Ferguson. Oh, sorry, she just beat you, Brad. Okay, do I have any opposition? No. Councillor Harriman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, Council put in a submission previously and a recommendation or a draft code had been released. At this point, I'd particularly like to thank the General Manager of Regional City Growth and Investment and her team for the fantastic job they have done with not only our first response or our first submission, but their reviewed submission to go in. I think it's important the community knows, well, I won't go through the whole of the submission. There's a paragraph there that I think hits the nail on the head. And if I may, Madam Mayor, I'll just read from it. It says, while a draft code has been released for consultation, Council believes that the proposed changes do not go far enough, fast enough. In the meantime, the supply of Victorian native timber will continue to be impacted through the sawmills and timber manufacturers, as well as their workers and contractors. Council is further concerned that if the code is not rectified, timber workers, contractors and their crews are likely to be stood down and wood supply to sawmills may diminish further or cease completely. Council supports close engagement with the Victorian timber industry in relation to their recommendations for any amendments to the code and help them secure the future of this sustainable industry. And I think that's the important thing, Madam Mayor. It is a sustainable industry. It's been around for about 180 years. We're now harvesting areas that have been harvested and regrown 3 to 4 times on their cycles. And I endorse this report and submission to my fellow councillors. And again, thank the General Manager, Regional City and Growth and her team for the fantastic job they've done in this area. Timber is a really, really important provider of jobs in Latrobe City, in investment in Latrobe City, and has a strong part to play in the future. And I ask my fellow councillors to support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak to the motion? No worries. Do I have another councillor wish to speak to the motion? No. Okay. For or against or at all? No. Okay. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we've had a speaker, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lund, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 14.5, Regional Jobs and Infrastructure Fund, our grants application. Do I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Middlemiss, you're moving. Do I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Harriman. Do I have any opposition? Nope. Okay. Councillor Middlemiss.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I thought I'd better move this one because I chair both committees involved, so I can take most of the blame. There are two very worthy projects that Council would like to see happen fairly quickly. One of those is some improvements out at the airport. If I can just digress there, you and I put a very enthusiastic article into the Express, and strangely enough, it produced a result. We have had a company contact us who would like to talk about running an air service out of our airport. So it's tremendous, but we need to upgrade the airport. Some of the infrastructure is getting a little behind time. If we waited to take it out of our rates, it'll just join the queue and it'll be some way off. And it said the same thing can be said about our proposal, which we call the Centre for Australian Automotive Futures, which is both a research and motorsport centre that we've proposed. Both these projects would just wait their turn for rates and would take quite some time to get off the ground, whereas the government has just opened the RJIF fund, Regional Jobs and Infrastructure Fund, and we have a chance to get $4 for every $1 that we would put in. So this application, or what we have this motion here, is to support an application to $3 million for the airport and $400,000 for the CAAF, to be funded on a 4-to-1 basis by the government, and that will allow us to accelerate work on both these very worthy projects and not have to wait for take their turn in the rates queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I acknowledge the projects Councillor Middlemiss has spoken about, and I think they both will have a huge economic and employment impact in our region in a very, very positive manner, and are really important. Just to give the community some ideas of what else we're looking at, we have a flood recovery properties, emergency recovery, where we're looking at construction of new buildings at places that were flooded, or council-owned buildings and community group-owned buildings that were flooded and have been flooded on a regular basis. We're looking at actually trying to get some funds to actually rebuild those community facilities at a higher level so they're not impacted by the floods. We've got a Gippsland materials recovery facility. Obviously, that's looking at recycling, which is an area of growth we see in taking on that closed cycle economy and actually reusing what we've already built. And a range of other projects across the whole of the valley, the Moe Revitalisation Project, Stage 2, the Lake Narracan foreshore development, and a lot at Latrobe Regional Airport, which is great, future Morwell, and the list goes on, Madam Mayor. It's right across the whole of the community. One of the big ones that's in there, of course, is the proposal that Council Middlemiss was part of, which was a rail trail linking all of Latrobe City Councils, and I believe you were part of that as well, Madam Mayor, along with a lot of other councils. I think Councillor Clancy was a huge supporter of it. The funding for that, to begin that, is in there so that we can start getting some of these arms connected up between our cities and bring our cities closer together, and again provide a huge tourist attraction, not only to locals but those coming into the area and being able to ride all around this great city. So once again, I thank the officers for their report, Madam Mayor. It's a great plan. It covers so much that it's hard to go into everything, but I endorse it to my fellow councillors. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do I have another councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Howe.
Oh, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, I think the airport is probably one of our unpolished gems in Latrobe City, with a lot of potential. And the Centre for Australian Automotive Futures, this is probably going to be the biggest thing in the automotive industry in Victoria. If we can get this off the ground, if not Victoria, it could be Australia as well. This has got unlimited potential. Both these projects will improve the livability of our city. It'll stimulate our economy and it'll provide us with much needed jobs. So I fully support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Howard. Do I have another councillor wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Anybody else wish to speak? No. Do you wish to close, Councillor Middlemiss?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Both the previous speakers have fleshed out the proposal in some detail, so there's no need for me to go there. Can I just take Councillor Harriman's point, though, that about the floods? Disasters like that put the council's funding back a step. We have to focus, put our money in that direction. This is a chance for us to proceed with these two extremely valuable projects. As Councillor Howe says, they're both employment builders. It gives us a chance to keep up and keep on target with those just by getting $4 for every one that we put up. So I think this is an excellent proposal. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. We've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Howe, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Law and Councillor Lund and myself, and I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 15.1, close off of the project reference groups. Councillor Harriman and Councillor Middlemiss, you're moving and seconding.
I'm moving an alt if I could, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Alt, okay. Councillor Harriman, are you seconding this alt?
I was a little ahead of myself, Madam Mayor. I was actually meant to second the alt.
Oh, okay, no worries. All right, so that's all right. Do I have any opposition to the alt? No. Councillor Harriman, do you wish to speak to this?
If I could, just to, Madam Mayor, just to explain one of the changes to the original, and I thank Councillor Middlemiss for his quick support of this motion. Madam Mayor, we're looking with a number of the project reference groups that have worked across our region on a number of projects. And I think they're listed there, the GRAC, the Gippsland Regional Aquatic Centre, the Moore Recreation Reserve and the Flynn Hall. We're looking at formally dissolving those. We're going to send a letter to each of the community members. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank those community members, not only across these PRGs, but across the whole project reference group on a number of projects the council's been involved in over the last couple of years. These are people giving up their time to come up with their ideas and their support from the community to help us achieve a better outcome. And I think in a lot of the projects, the input from the project reference group has been invaluable on a lot of the projects. So this is a way of saying thank you to those members. The third point is one we've put in, and Madam Mayor, quite often we have plaques at a lot of our buildings saying the state representative, the federal representative, the mayor of the day officially opened this building, and we don't recognise the work that's actually being done with a lot of these by the PRG group. So what we're looking at doing is appropriately recognising the contribution of the project reference group members at the venue, those that have put their time in to turn up to meetings, rain, hail or shine, you know, when there's better things to do, like watching the Olympics or you know, sporting events, or, you know, their favourite TV show. They give up that time, they give up their dinner, they turn up and they put in the time and they put in the effort, and they've had a huge impact. So what we're looking at doing is actually having them named in various ways, inside venues, at facilities, on notice boards outside, just in an appropriate way to recognise the work they've done, because quite often they've put in a lot more time than not money, but a lot more time than some of those that come from other levels of government and cut the ribbon and open the building. So I just wanted to be able to acknowledge the work that our community does in getting these facilities up. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Middlemiss, do you wish to?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Harriman's covered the essence of it. We received a great deal of money after the Hazelwood closure, and which was earmarked by the state government for a number of very large projects. When we were designing and building and going through the process, we had these project reference groups made up largely of the people who use these facilities or their representatives, plus community representatives, and they were absolutely invaluable to our team while they're working on these projects, because they were able to suggest changes, modifications, what we needed to do to make sure they worked perfectly. So Councillor Harriman's right. We owe them an enormous debt in the time that they put in, but also the advice we received to get these projects right. And I fully support his proposal that we have some recognition of the names of the people on the project reference groups around each of these completed projects. Now, we've only got 3 on this list because simply they are the first 3 absolutely complete. They're back in service, they're new, they're better. Each of the two of the facilities are now of such a standard that we have rebadged them as Gippsland, because we believe they are the best facilities in their field in Gippsland. And we're talking about the Gippsland Regional Aquatic Centre and the Moore Recreation Reserve, which we've given a subtitle to, the Gippsland Regional AFL Centre of Excellence, because that's where the AFL headquarters for Gippsland is based. And we have some very good training facilities there. So we virtually recognise these facilities as Gippsland-wide standards. Of course, you can't downplay the Flynn Hall. That community waited for about 20 years for the crumbling hall. We finally been able to get the money and give them a new hall. But again, it comes back to the project reference groups. They gave up their time, they gave us the advice, and through that advice, we've been able to get much better projects out of this. And as Councillor Harriman says, we should recognise these people and thank them. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. Do I have a councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Howe, I note you after that. Councillor Lund.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak because probably enough's been said, and it's going to be passed fairly easily. But I was involved in the Aquatic Centre and Flynn. It's just fantastic working with these communities. Instead of getting a great facility, we got an absolutely fantastic facilities, and it was designed by the users. They got exactly what they want, and they came in on budget or under budget. They chose the colour of the paint. They chose what sort of flooring. They chose what sort of lighting. They got what they wanted for their uses, and we'll be in debt for that, because we've got these facilities now that'll last us for generations. So yeah, a big thanks for everybody involved.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Lund, did you wish to speak to the motion? Yep. You've got to unmute yourself. Okay. Mr. CEO, can you unmute Councillor Lund? There you go.
Sorry again, I have not got an unmute button at the moment. So yeah, I won't go on too much. I just like to acknowledge, I think it really is important to acknowledge the unsung heroes of these community works that we do, and they are the volunteers. And as we've already stated, we can't actually do the work without them, and they do a power of work to get us to where we need to go, and their knowledge of what is needed and how we can do things better and how we can work together is really important and really valued, and it's great to see that we're recognising that.
No worries. Thank you. Do I have another councillor wish to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Anyone else wish to speak? No. Okay, Councillor Harriman, do you wish to close?
Madam Mayor, I just want to again thank the councillors for their support. Can I also thank the councillors, because I think everyone here spent time on a project reference group, putting a lot of their own time in, working with the community members, quite often championing their causes, taking calls from people not on the committee, chasing up ideas that they had. And I think it shows how good this community can work together in a positive manner and shows just what we're capable of. So to my fellow councillors, thank you for the time and the effort you put in. To the PRG members, thank you for the huge effort and the great ideas you came up with. And to the community members that rang, emailed, called, text, to find out how their favourite project was going, with ideas of what we might be able to incorporate. Thank you as well. And I think it's really, really appropriate that we do recognise everyone on the project reference group at these venues, so that down the track, again, as we had earlier, you know, people will understand that, you know, a local park was named after a local mayor who put in 10, 15 years on his council, that a park was named after a Vietnam veteran who served his country. We're going to be able to go into these venues in 10, 15 years time when we're all retired, hopefully. People will be able to go in and see that the people that worked on the PRG to get them the great facilities that this city now has. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Fair comments. Okay, we've had speakers. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour. Councillor Law, you two. Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Lund, Councillor Law, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Howe and myself. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay, that's an end to our do I have a motion for urgent business? Nope. Okay. That being the case, do I have a mover for a close? Oh, Councillor Middlemiss to close the meeting. Councillor Lund, you're seconding? Yep. Yep. No worries. Do I have any opposition? No. I declare the motion carried at 8:52 and close this to the public. Okay. Can that be stopped?